Are you feeling unhappy at your job to the point where you think you're ready to bring that up with your boss? In this video, I'm going to tell you a few things you need to know before you have that conversation with your boss. And I'm also going to share my personal story of how I told my boss that I was unhappy at my job. Spoiler alert, I ended up quitting. If this is your first time here, be sure to subscribe to this channel where we share the secrets and tools that you need to know to live a carefree lifestyle. And part of living a carefree lifestyle is being happy at your job and not feeling like you have to quit. Now, before you walk into your boss's office and tell them about how unhappy you are, there's a few things that you need to think about. The first thing is that you should have a really good understanding of why you're feeling unhappy at work. I'm talking about our relationship with our boss and our coworkers, the work itself, things that we actually have to do at work. These are probably the most common things that cause us to feel unhappy at our jobs. But it's not always specific conflicts that make you unhappy about your job. For example, you might just not feel like you're being challenged enough and you're starting to lose interest in disengaging from your work. The important thing is that you understand why you're feeling unhappy so that you can communicate that to your boss and resolve the situation. And you probably want to do that without leaving your job. Unless you're in desperation mode, I recommend trying to salvage your job as much as possible before making a drastic life decision. Now, the second thing you need to know about telling your boss that you're unhappy with your work is that you should do it as soon as you feel like you're unhappy with your work. Now, I'm not saying right in a moment when a conflict happens and you're feeling unhappy. I'm talking you've had enough time to process what has happened and you feel confident that you are unhappy with your job. Diving into a conversation without really fully understanding how you're feeling is a bit risky because you could end up saying something that you don't truly mean. However, holding on to the feelings of being unhappy at work is just going to cause those feelings to build up, and it's going to make it that much harder to actually have the conversation with your boss. Now, the next and probably the most important thing you need to know about telling your boss that you're unhappy is how you're going to do it. This conversation can look however you're comfortable with it looking. It could take the form of an email, setting up an appointment to have a conversation. Depending on the situation, you might want to get human resources involved. Or if your boss is receptive, you could just knock on their door and ask them if they have a few moments to chat. Regardless, when it comes time to having that conversation with your boss, it's always easy to start nerve-wracking conversations with gratitude. Leading with positives is a good way to set the tone, and showing that you're grateful for the things that are going well in your job, and that the point of the conversation is not that you're coming to your boss just to complain about your job. Aim to be specific about the issue. This is hard for me to help you with because I don't know the specific reason why you're unhappy with your job. However, you want to specifically explain why whatever's happening is making it difficult for you to be successful in your job. Make it clear that your goal is not to complain about your job in any way, but instead you're aiming to illustrate how you're not reaching your potential because of whatever this obstacle happens to be, and that you could really use their help overcoming it. It's important to make clear that you're not actually resigning from your job during this conversation, but instead you're aiming to show that you believe in growth and its power to help you overcome whatever obstacle you're facing. Now, one of the reasons why having this conversation can be so stressful is because there's no guarantee that it's going to go well. It is possible that after that conversation, you won't have found a resolution to whatever the issue is. But the good thing is that you will know that you have tried your best to overcome the obstacle rather than avoiding it. You can look back with confidence knowing that you attempted to find the growth opportunities in whatever the obstacle was. And now, as promised, I'm going to share my story with how I told my boss that I was unhappy. And as I mentioned, I ended up quitting my job. Now, I've talked a lot on this channel about how I used to be a teacher and how I ended up quitting that job for a variety of reasons. But first and foremost, I was unhappy with my work because I had struggled to maintain a sense of work-life balance. I was a new father at the time, and I was really just finding it hard to balance everything and still be present and available for my family during that time. I was finding the specific demands that my school was placing on me to be unreasonable, so I decided to schedule a meeting with my boss, who's the principal, and I did everything that I just explained to you in this video. I started by explaining how grateful I was to have the opportunity to be a teacher. It was a job I worked so hard to get and wasn't interested in quitting. That was not the intention of the conversation. I didn't go into that conversation aiming to quit. I was looking for a resolution of some sort. After explaining my personal circumstances and showing that I was looking for some support to continue to be successful in my role, I left happy from that conversation feeling heard, and I was excused from a few things that I was responsible for that year that did significantly lighten my load and help a little bit with my work-life balance. I felt confident that I'd had that conversation and I'd tried everything I could to make sure that I didn't have to leave my job. But as time went on, I realized that the work-life balance issue was still there. And while I was super passionate about teaching, I knew that there was just something else missing from my work. So I had the conversation with my boss. I had the peace of mind that I gave it a fair shot. I was fortunate enough to actually feel heard. And I also moved forward with the peace of mind of knowing that I was being supported to continue being successful in my role if I chose to. This conversation was very instrumental in my decision to leave my job, and I'm glad that I had the conversation before I decided to walk away from teaching. If you don't love the job that you're doing, check out one of the videos on your screen now for some inspiration to find work that you love, and be sure to check out the links to our blog in the description for more.